السيدات والسادة، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. محدثتكم آمنة الكتبي، باحثة اقتصادية في قطاع البحث.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, at ECSSR, and on behalf of Dr. Sultan Al-Naimi, the General Director of the ECSSR, to welcome you in today's lecture, which is a series of Emirates thinkers hosting distinguished lecturers and Emirati thinkers in different topics, which comes on a global economic outlook. The global economy now is facing the biggest crisis since the Second World War. So the pandemic last years ago imposing heavy costs, and while recovery, another unprecedented crisis represented in the Russo-Ukrainian War, and this affected the prices of food and energy. The world now is finding difficulty in providing considerable prices among these challenges. So, to find the consequences and the dimensions of these crises, we are happy to host His Excellency Hussein Ahmed Al-Qimzi, President of Fiducia and TRICAP. He has a professional career in UAE banking sector, as he worked the Noor Bank, also the IFC contribution, and also Vice Chairman of Amara Properties. And now we are happy to invite His Excellency Hussein Al-Qimzi to start his lecture. Thank you. Peace be upon you. Good morning. First, I'm happy to be with you. And firstly, we saw the footage, the short film that expresses many questions surrounding and pops in the minds of economists. And it is said that if you want to feel what is depression, invite some economists to your dinner. What I want to say, that this language we are hearing, this doesn't mean that there is a disaster, there is a catastrophe. Yes, there is economic catastrophe, but current economic catastrophes doesn't look like the Great Depression, when people were hungry, scarcity of food. No, not in that way. Yet there are some phenomena controlling the operations from the background of economists. Quickly, I will go over what is happening in the world and the main points that we should pay attention to. So, this is Christiana Georgieva, and she is the general manager of the IMF. She expressed her what is happening around the world. She said, we have experienced shock after shock after shock. What she meant, but what said by Kristalina is the pandemic. The first shock is the pandemic. The second, the Russian-Ukrainian war that caused energy and food crisis. The third is drought and lack of rain in many places of the world that led to lack of energy and food crops, as happened in China. That's what she meant by these shocks. This is Gita Gobinath. She is senior economist of IMF. According to her estimates, I don't agree with her by necessity. She says that the world will lose $4 trillion between 2022 and 2024. 4 trillion is the amount of the GPD of Germany, the economy of Germany, this 4 trillion number. After that, I said that women are more pessimistic. Let's see this. Steve Hanke, professor of applied economics at Johns Hopkins University, says, and you always see him on CNBC, Bloomberg, as a speaker, he says the US economy will fall into a recession. The difference, not necessarily because of interest rates. What this economist sees, he looks in what is called into, which is the measure of the amount of cash in circulation. He noticed that cash is not growing in USA economy, and that would lead, according to him, to recession. This morning I was reading on Bloomberg that the United States American president on CNN said that recession will not happen. Simple recession could happen, but will the American citizens be ready for any upcoming recession? He said, I don't think so. The American president, of course, Democratic, and now they are in the mid-election, and will be most influenced by, in the election, is the rate of joblessness. But the rate in the job market in the United States is rather good. All these fears and concerns come from 2 points: inflation and recession. Now, the world is in a state of inflation. Inflation, simply the rise of prices of services and goods faster than the wages increase and income increase. This means, in other words, families, with the passage of time, will not be able, or their purchase power will be weakened. So the power, yeah. On the other hand, recession, which is slowdown in economy happening usually and leading to joblessness, lack or scarcity or difficulty in finding jobs. What is happening between the 2 points, the inflation happening now is artificial. It's not real. It was made up after the pandemic and the lockdowns, because the lockdowns even could lead to a worse crisis than recession. To combat recession, they allowed and provided liquidity for continuity of loaning and control of prices to help investors to expand and invest. And you know, the faster the inflation goes, the prices will go up also, because this is an economic rule. The more liquidity is there, the more the prices and goods are high. So, back again, it's an attempt to make up or to recession through raising or rising the interest rate. They are afraid of slipping into recession, but what they want is to they want to reach that in what's so-called soft landing by lowering the interest rate. Is there any chance? Yes, there is, because historically they did it many times. In 1970s, Volcker, who was the American Reserve President, he was very brave to raise the interest rate, which was really stubborn recession, and he raised it to 20%, but later on it went down and reached 2%, and that's what they are targeting by the American Reserve Bank. When we are talking about United States and the American economy, some might ask, what is our business? What is this to do with us? Whatever we say, whether we like it or not, willy-nilly, the American economy is the biggest economy in worldwide. It has the currency, and most of the prices and goods are priced by dollar, energy, metals, coffee, all priced by dollar. It is dominant at capitalization, the amount of international companies. The American economy is really influential. In the morning, I start reading the Asian markets before the American starts. I see that the Asian markets are influenced by what happened the day before in the American markets. This is not our choice. It's not in our hands. Leave this point. The important part that we should pay attention to is the dollar is rising. I told you before, the dollar is the pricing currency for the whole world. When dollar goes up, which is now currently rising, in the Gulf states, in the Arab Gulf states, all our currencies are pegged and linked officially with dollar. So, but our currency is high, so we might not be influenced because we are moving with the dollar. When dollar goes up, it is in the interest of the internal American economy better than importing goods. American tourists can go to Europe. The cost is less. And this also applies to us. But the multinational American companies that manufacture, sell, and has branches like Apple and like many other companies which has branches and the production processes worldwide, which is the multinational companies, because they are collecting money from different currencies and then transfer this or convert this into dollar. This will affect these companies negatively. So when the other currencies are low and the dollar is high, this will affect the cost for other countries, and they will start to find alternative routes to depend less on dollar to reach these and buy or get these services and goods. As I mentioned, the rise of the dollar will affect the emerging economies. Most of the emerging economies will be influenced by the rise of the dollar for the reasons I mentioned before. As for inside the United States, the high dollar is good for controlling inflation because the value, especially in the United States, many of the commodities are imported. And if the dollar is high, that means the prices are less. That's what is happening generally in the markets. But this could not happen or could not be in the favor of United States. In Ronald Reagan term or era, United States bought currencies from other countries to protect the value of these currencies till the dollar is of less value, so that will help other countries import from United States and import commodities from the United States. So this will help other countries to continue buying American goods and products. So that will be even affordable to other countries. In general look, if we look at this map, I depended on this map on a report, the IMF. Some numbers could have changed since Tuesday. It is observed that the up or the word is the estimated number, while the one below is a number estimated by IMF. But in North America, it is Fitch estimates, because I couldn't find any estimates from IMF. And yesterday, IMF modified its credit rating for United States and reduced to 1.6. And for the next year, 1%. This is a reduction, big reduction, because this 1% makes big difference. This is dim image. So this depreciation is dim image, but as I told you, what we need to know that even if we go and there is recession, let me go with you, there would happen recession. What In modern history, and since the 20th century till now, there are 8 recessions in the United States. One of the most difficult, and we lived, which is the international financial crisis, and now it is to be named the biggest or a great recession, not the Great Depression that took place in 1930. In 2008, it was agreed to name it a Great Recession. It took place, but we lived, we bought, we didn't feel it. That it influenced on the financial institutions and some countries. But in some societies, you don't feel this recession. This Great Recession ended in 2009, middle of 2007 till it ended in 2009, and that was a Great Recession. What I see today, no matter these images are dim and difficult, but there are non-stop efforts to increase the interest rate, and over there is another one. And the international economy is still resilient. American big companies are still making profits. The results are good. So where is the recession? The American consumer did not stop expanding. He still have some savings. Job market still good. Joblessness is low. I think it is difficult, kind of stubborn inflation that will take time. They started slowly in their steps. They took slow steps. When he is taking a shower, it turns on the faucet. It is cold. After that, it takes hot. This is exactly what is happening in inflation. They are gradually rising or raising the rates till we have indicators that there is recession. This recession, as I told you, they have some indicators. And generally, a recession is a slowdown, big slowdown in the economic activity. It has many definitions economists define, but technical definition of recession is 2 quarters, consecutive quarters of slowdown or decrease in growth. That is the indicator for recession. Others, for example, American bonds are changing. For example, the last two years increased. If the 2 years, for example, pay more than 10 years, this means we are in a state of recession. But yet, people are still living and continue to live. I don't want to be to create and spread panic. That's it. Question. That's what is happening in the world. The process started in the United States, and all the pressures starting from there. And I was still working during the on the world crisis. I was working in the board of directors, and I talked about the crisis in the United States. He said, no, we are in a different situation. It will not be influenced. But after a few months, we got influenced. That's what I mean, that the American economy is influential. What is happening in the United States will affect us, of course, one way or another, but not that bad, especially in the Arab Gulf states currently. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for this information that enriched our knowledge about global economy outlook. You mentioned about the economic dim expectations because American and Chinese economies are the biggest. How do you see the opportunities and repercussions of the escalation of Chinese-American competition in the light of the current global economy? China is the second biggest economy and biggest consumer of and importer of goods and energy. It is the factory of the world. China also, we are moving from economy to politics. China is different in the ideology from the American Americans, yet they are interrelated in interests. What happened lately in the change in Hong Kong laws, it started in Hong Kong. Western countries have started to regard that China is not playing fairly and it has ambitions, political ambitions in using the powers. This is geopolitical that started first. After that, the West started, and if you remember, Trump imposed taxes on and tariffs on Chinese imported products, hundreds of milliards. And also China put taxes in return, and then there was an agreement cancel the taxes in return that China will import from America for 200 billions. But China just imported 56%. This conflict changed into important spot, which is related to electronic chips. We didn't pay attention maybe, but it is in your car, mobile, washing machine, fridge. All the smart appliances are using these chips. But who owns and controls the technology is controlling and leading technology worldwide. This is not only to control products. USA is leading in digital industry. China is the second and is following United States, but it's still in old school industry. These chips also very important for military industrialization. These chips can direct missiles. So American trend is trying to prevent China to reach chips technology. And last Friday, many American regulations banning electronic chips cannot be sent or sold to China. They are trying to prevent China from accessing latest technology in chips. This is what we call the cold commercial war between China and America. But China also, on the other hand, is like a giant who is harming himself. China is suffering inside of lockdowns. Today or yesterday, they have lockdowns for other cities. The lockdown of cities, this will lead to stop of factories, and workers will not reach factories, will affect the supply chain, will affect the Chinese economy, and also Chinese companies, and ability to satisfy and perform its investment promises and the shares, the bonds, and the stock in equity and performance. China also has a big real estate problem. There is a Chinese bubble now in China. The real estate sector in China is very, very big and affecting the construction and other construction materials worldwide. But the problem of this sector, that this sector happening in the local governments, they give lands to developers to sell and to purchase, and the government interfered. The central government interfered and put boundaries limiting the real estate companies from loaning or taking loans, so they will not be able to get liquidity, projects stopped, and Chinese citizens stopped paying or defaulting now. But China, is centralized government. It's difficult to move. Movement is not that easy. Whatever happens in China will affect on the international economy, slowdown of economy, but at the end, they are trying to slow down the economy too. But indeed, it will have bigger on economy. It's the second after America. The second topic, the second issue is OPEC's decision to cut production to 2 million oil barrels worldwide. So what does this oil cut production affect? Oil is a commodity. It's not political decision. And you know, commodity is under the rule of supply and demand. OPEC till now, and many members, they couldn't raise their production because they don't have the capabilities, the potentials to raise production. And most of the countries that can raise production are UAE and Saudi Arabia. So some countries don't have that capability. I don't think there would be any influence more than this. The democratic in America, but oil as a commodity, and what is OPEC doing in short term and in the long term will be affected by the production ability and the demand. That are the rules that will affect commodities. Oil will, in my opinion, will not have that influence more than it is one of the important commodities. But what our concern is to lead to political conflict and dispute. Some declarations today from the American president that he will impose sanctions on OPEC members and are combating monopoly of oil. But yet, even if OPEC doesn't reduce production, nothing will change. As for the Gulf states, they are benefiting from material, will continue to benefit, financially speaking, from the prices of the oil prices, and the $3 trillion can be collected by these states in the Gulf, and that will help recover the economy, defense industry, and the future in general. This is in the interest and in favor of the Gulf states. So generally speaking, most of the Gulf states, UAE is different states, but most of the Gulf states will not be affected due to energy and oil surplus. UAE is different because it has diversity in economy, but most of the economy is service-based, airlines, flights. So these will be affected. So when we have recession, tourism sector, real estate sector, travel sectors will be affected. Part of UAE's economy will be affected, but I think generally the situation will be good, talking about liquidity. Let's talk about climate. In the light of the current energy crisis, how do you see the future of the global agenda in combating climate change? What is the plan to combat climate change? Two parts. First, Russo-Ukrainian War caused changing in the world's outlook and the view, and they discovered maybe late or delayed discovery that we have to diversify our suppliers. But politically, this is a long story, started since 1970s. American Chancellor Willy Brandt, who started the strategy with the United States, the policy was named Ostkommerz, Eastern Commerce or trade. If we deal commercially with the East, especially the Russian, will create interest for Russia to create interest for Russia and Europe, and we will have peace. But the dispute between the Russians are not exactly like Europeans. They have different Oriental mentality, and they have separate, different mentality than the Europeans. But now the state between Europe, that they don't want the Russian regime at any expense, and they are trying to find a substitute, which is possible, but it will take time, 5 years, maybe. So they will try, meanwhile, to reach alternatives, substitutes. Germany delayed or postponed, some started to use fossil fuel and coal, and to lessen their dependence on Russia. and dependence on the Russian energy and supplies. So they don't want to use the Russian energy as much as possible. As for when the Soviet Union succeeded giving or sending or shipping oil to Europe, when oil was cut off from Europe, in the Middle East we were the biggest suppliers to Europe. But Europe left us and turned to Russia and Soviet Union. But now, less than 10% we are selling to Europe. After the Russian-Ukrainian war, I think our share of sale to Europe will be bigger. But Russia is competing us in Asia, China and India, which are the biggest buyers of Russian oil now, and consumers even. So it is our chance to expand towards Europe. Now we open the floor for discussion. Please, as concise as possible to allow more participants to ask. Please. Hello, good morning. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for the valuable information. Two observations. I agree with you that the rise of prices are really not real and it is artificial. But you know, to fight inflation, we have to create recession, but these are in conflict. We created inflation to combat recession, but with time, the inflation now got out of control, and that's why we have a rise in interest rates in the world. And now, your opinion, is it right or no? Your opinion. The second point is, I think IMF is afraid of recession or stagnation from inflation rather than from recession or stagnation or impasse. That's the fear. Your opinion? Third point, as for China and America, I don't know if it is accurate or no. There is an interdependence between America and China, so it's not in the interest of China that USA collapse and vice versa for United States. But the chips and Taiwan, this will play a major role. I'm sorry for taking long. So inflation led to recession or stagnation. Inflation doesn't lead to recession. It is opposite to recession. And interest rate is artificial, not real, which is the base or a ground price, and which is or like the cost price where the banks give loans. So we hear that many countries in Australia, New Zealand, except Japan, are raising the interest rate. But most of them raising the interest rate to control inflation. But as I said, controlling inflation, the more the interest rate is high, less expansion will happen for companies. A slowdown will happen, and doing a job will be costly. Investment also will be affected. And you know, deposits, bonds prices will also go up. Some investors that prefer to benefit from interest rate than risking capitals. Yes, it is artificial, and we are still doing it artificially, but historically it was done, and many times during in 2007 during Bernanke. And we saw cases and they could control, which is different from the Great Depression, because the Reserve Bank didn't do anything because they didn't understand and they were waiting for something to happen. latest events showed we have the theory that depends on economy by government expenditure, and Milton Friedman theory who says that controlling the interest rate, which we are witnessing in the United States, and this is Milton's school to manipulate the interest rate to control inflation. Your opinion that IMF is afraid of inflationary recession, not IMF only, but it's also scared of the abilities of the countries to pay for its debts, the sovereign debts, and the ability to pay its sovereign states because of the interest rates. But inflationary recession, we didn't see it yet. I'm not sure, and I don't know if you follow the official statements in IMF or International Fund Bank. Many fears and concerns are expressed, but nothing clear. I think there will be kind of recession, but mild. And the robust American economy is my indicator for this. American companies are working and doing well. Thank you, Dr. Mustafa Eid from Ministry. I agree with you, optimistic. That there is a pessimistic view in the work of the economists. Do you believe that crises, IMF, Kristalina said from shock to shock to shock, will these crises help us deduct or to show the weakness in the infrastructure in the regime, or these world governments took to or resorted? The $4 trillion as loss in the international production between 2022 2024. If we consider this or presume this number is correct, will this reflect projects to take place in the world? Was there a need for a shock for this money to get out of the market because they are not using the resources properly? You are in the private sector in 2023, 2024. We are having big impetus in this. What's the difference between cash economy and the genuine economy? $90 trillion in commodity, but it is multiplied by 4 as cash. For this region, benign inflation, will it continue? Thank you, Your Excellency. The question is, the shock will discover the world economy structure as globalization is modern and recent to a degree. Commercial agreements started to organize commercial relations between the countries to create equality is not old, and achieved big success. And the most important of this success is to help some countries go out of poverty, emerge out of poverty, like India, China itself, and many countries could, because opening the commercial agreements and doors to improve their economies. But what happened lately, nobody expect the happening of a pandemic, but it took place in the 20th century. And we didn't have that information to deal with that pandemic. And the world forgot that this pandemic could happen anytime. This is one of the Russian-Ukrainian war helped us unfold things. For me, I did not discover Ukraine as an important agricultural state for the third world and countries. It is the biggest wheat suppliers for the third world countries. Somalia now are suffering from hunger because they are not able to buy the Ukrainian wheat. They cannot buy the Canadian or Australian. This is a new discovery, and we were not conscious of this, that Ukraine and that region is a food basket. And we did not pay attention to that. Even in Egypt, many Arab countries now suffering in bread, which is dangerous. The food crisis, when Anwar Sadat raised the price of food, bread, people went to the streets. The world was not ready, and many economists did not predict. And that said that this will lead. Fertilizers also, on the other hand. Most of the fertilizers and the components of these fertilizers come from Russia. Nobody paid attention to this. We just discovered this. We don't know everything about world economy. We are learning. I agree with you. We discovered many things from recent shocks, and Europe discovered they cannot depend on one source of energy. Peace be upon you. Thank you, Your Excellency, Brother Hussein, for this insightful and the optimistic view. Though you refer to the pessimistic view for women, but you changed this pessimism into optimism. But at the same time, you raised some concerns related to the weakness in the data base and information we have, and that was indicated by the crises we are facing today. No data, no sufficient data to help us reach informed analysis. How can we get over this related to the lack of database? The second, you mentioned as a result of the high prices of oil and the transformation or changes in the cash market and financial market, oil states, Gulf states can benefit from financially, and the amount can reach more than $3 trillion, which can be used in the government sector. Don't you think, especially I'm talking about UAE, we are moving towards economic diversity and changing the economic policies? There is no doubt such amount will go to the precedes economy. We are linked to the American dollar. But you mentioned we have diversity in economy. What are the most sectors that are affected by, because our currency is linked to the American dollar? Last point. UAE especially and other Gulf states are seeking to reach a clean energy. How do you assess this? How do these efforts of UAE in hydrogen and the nuclear power, do we have the capabilities to make us that able to diversify power? First, a question related, how can we remedy the database insufficiency. UAE has many statistical institutions, and we need to direct these databases to our internal economy. If we follow the American or Chinese economy, there are similar indicators: consumption rate, production rate. There are signs or indicators that are helping the analyst when he is analyzing economy. You know, in data terms, in UAE and the Gulf states, we believe that for the economy to prosper, news should be always positive. But as a businessman, negative news is investment, because I buy something because the price has gone down. So we have to reach that, to trust ourselves and the size of our economy and accept the reduction of some prices. China, which is a communist, they announce and reports what, if anything, goes down. Investors need true and accurate information, whether it is negative or positive. If we look at data and business information, such countries like Singapore is not free country, but its media and information related to business, the economic information is very important in Singapore because it is the alarm to organize and help financial institutions, banks, correct and go to the right path. It alerts you to the problem and help you solve that problem in good time. So we have to allow interaction and accept negative news. It's not difficult. Reports should reflect reality, whether bad or good. Joblessness. These are also some of the challenges in UAE, how to measure joblessness. People are here on job contracts. The real joblessness is on the complete stratum, and the only stratum that we consider in the joblessness rate are 1,200,000 UAE citizens. So we cannot consider this expat rate in determining the rate of joblessness and analyze the reasons and how to deal these rates. We have to be frank and open, honest. We did not work on these databases seriously, and we did not search. Another background in the region, which we did not pay attention, there is interaction and overlapping in the monies and investments between the Gulf states. But circulation of liquidity investments is there because of the easiness of currencies. We did not reach unified currency, but data also should be like currency, easily circulated and exchanged between the Gulf states. This should be taken into consideration. We are similar economic bloc. As for the Emirati economic, that will be affected, being Emirati currency is pegged with dollar. I think still this is important. And most of our exports, which are mainly the oil, you have to link or depend on a stable currency and link your currency to a stable currency. Liberating currency on the UAE level is not recommended now. That can create similar to what happened in the Asian world, many currencies lost its value because of speculation. So protecting the currency is required now. The influence on the sectors that will be affected, we will be affected. You know, we are an importing society for most of our products. So everything we import will be paid for in dollar. So if the dollar is strong, this will benefit us. Thank you so much. Because due to lack of time, at the end of this time, I would like to thank His Excellency, and on behalf of Director Sultan Al-Nuaimi, I would thank His Excellency Ahmed Al-Qamsi, and see you next time in a coming event. Thank you so much.